My brother tried to frame me for fraud. He didn't realize I had everything recorded. The exact moment you realize your parents see you as nothing more than a spare parts bin for your older brother, something inside your chest just snaps. It's not a loud dramatic break. It's a quiet, cold click, like a deadbolt sliding into place. I was sitting at the edge of the worn oak dining table, the one my dad spent 3 weekends refinishing, just so my brother Julian could carve his initials into it a month later without getting grounded. My mother was standing by the stove, not cooking, just tapping her manicured nails against the laminate countertop. Tap, tap, tap. It was her signature nervous habit, the physical manifestation of her preparing to ask me to bleed so Julian could have a transfusion. "It's just a signature, Leo," my dad said. He didn't look at me. He was focused on a stack of legal documents resting between us. His thumb rubbed the edge of the paper over and over, wearing down the corner. "You're not using the equity in the condo anyway. You're single. You don't have a family to support. Julian is trying to build a future. Julian is trying to cover up a $30,000 deficit in his shell LLC," I said, my voice completely flat. I looked down at my own hands. My knuckles were red from the winter wind. Skin cracking around the cuticles because I'd been spending 14 hours a day on site managing a commercial HVAC overhaul. And it's not just a signature, Dad. It's a cosign on a commercial line of credit. When he defaults, they come after my property. The place I bought with my own down payment. Julian shifted his weight on the sofa in the adjoining living room. He didn't even have the decency to sit at the table with us. He was scrolling through his phone, a brand new iPhone 15 Pro Max that my parents had helped him lease, acting like he was entirely above the conversation. But I saw the way his jaw tightened. I saw the slight tremor in his right leg. He was sweating through his designer hoodie. "Don't talk about your brother like he's a criminal, Leo," my mother snapped, finally turning around. Her eyes were small, sharp, and wet with that performative anxiety she always used as a weapon. "He made a mistake with his inventory tracking. A logistics error. Anyone can make a logistics error in their first year of business. He bought $50,000 worth of unverified electronic components from an unlisted supplier in Shenzhen that turned out to be literal blocks of painted plastic," I said. "That's not a logistics error. That's a total lack of due diligence. He got scammed, Mom, and now you want me to leverage my home to bail him out of a hole he dug himself." Dad slammed his palm on the table. The water glasses rattled. "That is enough. You have always been like this. Cold, calculating, keeping score like a damn accountant. We are a family. When one of us is drowning, we don't stand on the dock and lecture them about swimming lessons. We throw them a line. I am the line, Dad. You guys already emptied your retirement account to fund his urban lifestyle brand last year. What happened to that money?" Julian finally looked up from his phone. His face was flushed, a blotchy, ugly red that crept up his neck. "It was an investment in brand identity, Leo. You wouldn't get it. You work in a blue-collar basement. You install pipes. You don't understand what it takes to build a modern consumer footprint. I just need a bridge loan to get through the Q1 manufacturing cycle." "A bridge loan backed by my deed," I said. I stood up, pulling my heavy canvas jacket off the back of the chair. "The answer is no. I'm not signing it. I'm going home." The room went dead silent for a beat. The only sound was the low hum of their outdated refrigerator. Then, Dad stood up too. He didn't look old or frail in that moment. He looked bloated with an ancient, irrational anger that had been building since we were kids. The anger that always surfaced whenever I refused to let Julian take my toys, my clothes, or my credit. "If you walk out that door without signing these papers," Dad said, his voice dropping to a dangerous low gravel, "don't bother coming back for Sunday dinners. Don't call your mother on her birthday. Don't ask us for a single thing when your little pipe-fitting business goes under." "My business is fully bonded and profitable, Dad," I whispered. "I don't care," he shouted, his face inches from mine now. I could smell the stale coffee and peppermint on his breath. "You're a selfish, ungrateful little parasite. We gave you everything. We gave you a roof over your head. We fed you, and the first time your brother needs your help to literally survive, You turn your back on him? You're a disgrace to this name." My mother didn't say a word to stop him. She just crossed her arms, looking at me with a cold, detached disgust. As if I were a stranger who had tracked mud across her clean carpet, Julian smiled. It was a tiny, fleeting movement of his lips, gone in a microsecond, but I caught it. He knew he had won the emotional territory. He always did. "Get out," Dad said, pointing a trembling finger toward the front door. "Get your coat, get your things, and get out of my sight. You want to be independent? You want to act like you're better than this family? Fine, you're on your own. Totally on your own." I didn't argue. I didn't cry. My chest felt hollowed out, empty and cold like a concrete vault. I walked out into the freezing November sleet without looking back. As my boots crunched on the gravel driveway, I heard the heavy oak front door slam shut behind me, the deadbolt clicking into place with that same definitive sound I'd felt in my chest minutes earlier. I sat in my truck for 20 minutes, staring at the steering wheel, watching the ice build up on the windshield wipers. My hands weren't shaking from the cold. They were shaking from the sudden, terrifying realization that I no longer had a safety net. Not that I ever really had one, but the illusion was officially dead. I was 26 years old, completely isolated, and targeted by the people who were supposed to protect me. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't have possibly guessed as I turned the key in the ignition and watched my parents' living room lights fade in my rearview mirror, was that Julian wasn't planning on taking no for an answer. The line of credit wasn't just a request. It was a necessity for him to avoid a major grand larceny charge from his primary investor. And since I wouldn't give him my signature voluntarily, he had already decided to take it anyway. The next 6 months were a blur of caffeine, diesel exhaust, and the kind of deep, bone-weary exhaustion that changes the shape of your face. I cut out everything that wasn't directly tied to generating revenue. I stopped going out. I canceled my streaming subscriptions. I lived on black coffee, scrambled eggs, and 5 hours of broken sleep a night. My commercial HVAC company, Apex Climate Solutions, was in a precarious growth phase. I had just landed a contract for a 3-story medical complex on the edge of the city, a project that required $40,000 in upfront material costs before the first milestone invoice would pay out. If I messed up the timeline by even 48 hours, the liquidated damages clause would eat my entire profit margin and leave me personally liable for the equipment rentals. Every morning at 4:30 a.m., my alarm would go off, its harsh chime cutting through the silence of my dark, empty condo. I'd sit up, drag my boots on, and feel the phantom weight of that family confrontation pressing down on my shoulders. "They think you're nothing," a voice in the back of my head would whisper. "They're waiting for you to crawl back and beg for forgiveness." That thought became my fuel. It wasn't healthy, but it was incredibly effective. Meanwhile, through the small, unavoidable leaks in our mutual social circles, I kept tabs on the golden child's trajectory. It was an exercise in slow-motion train wreck observation. Julian hadn't stopped spending. In fact, he had accelerated. He posted photos on his Instagram from a networking retreat in Cabo, sipping tequila by an infinity pool while wearing a tailored linen shirt. He bought a used BMW M3 with a high-interest subprime loan, parking it outside my parents' house like a trophy. To the outside world, he was the picture of a thriving young entrepreneur. But I knew the metrics of his business model. The math simply didn't work. His lifestyle brand was moving less than 20 units of merchandise a week, mostly to his personal friends who probably used discount codes. One evening in mid-March, I ran into Marcus at a local plumbing supply warehouse. Marcus was a mutual friend who had done some web development work for Julian's LLC. He looked uncomfortable when he saw me, shifting from foot to foot while holding a box of brass fittings. "Hey, Leo," Marcus said, looking past my shoulder toward the exit. "Haven't seen you around the family stuff lately." "Yeah, been busy with the medical center build," I said, keeping my tone casual. "How's things with you?" Good. Hey, man, look, I don't want to get in the middle of family business, but is everything okay with your credit?" My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. Julian asked me to look over some PDF documents a few weeks ago. He needed help reformatting some digital signatures for a corporate registration filing. It was on an Apex Climate Solutions letterhead. I saw your name on the guarantor line, Leo. It looked like a scan of your old driver's license from high school was attached as verification. I felt the blood drain from my face. My fingers gripped the handle of my hand truck so hard the metal bit into my palm. When was this, Marcus? Like, late February? I told him I couldn't do it because the formatting looked off, and he got really defensive. Said it was just an internal administrative thing between you two. Did you guys settle that commercial credit line? Yeah. I lied, my voice steady despite the roar of adrenaline in my ears. Yeah, we settled it. Don't worry about it. The moment I got back to my truck, I pulled out my laptop and opened my business bank account. Nothing looked out of place. No unauthorized withdrawals. Then I checked my personal credit bureau monitoring service. There it was. A hard inquiry from a private merchant lender based out of Delaware called Vanguard Capital Growth. The inquiry had been logged 3 weeks ago. Status: pending verification. Julian hadn't just copied my signature. He was trying to open a corporate merchant cash advance in my company's name, using my personal assets as the secondary collateral. A merchant cash advance is the financial equivalent of a payday loan for businesses. Interest rates upwards of 45%, daily automated withdrawals directly from the operating account, and absolute draconian default penalties. If that loan went through, Apex Climate Solutions would be bled dry within 90 days. I didn't call the police immediately. I knew exactly how that would play out. My parents would claim it was a misunderstanding. Julian would play the victim, and without definitive proof of intent to defraud, it would devolve into a messy, protracted civil dispute that would ruin my business reputation before the court date even arrived. I needed something irrefutable. I needed him to walk directly into the trap he was setting for me. I called an old contact from my trade school days, a guy named Dave, who now worked as a compliance officer for a commercial brokerage firm. I explained the situation without using Julian's real name. If someone's trying to spoof your business identity for an MCA, Dave told me over the phone, his voice competing with the sound of wind on my hands-free mic, they need a verified business bank routing number and a clean copy of your corporate tax return. Do they have access to your office? No, I said, but they have access to my old bedroom at my parents' house, where I kept my old tax files from the first year of business. Then you're exposed, Leo. Here's what you do. Don't freeze the credit line yet. Flag it with the fraud department at Vanguard, but ask them to place a hold for manual verification. Tell them you suspect identity theft but want to catch the broker in the act. They'll cooperate because they hate bad paper more than anyone. Then wait for the call. I spent the next 3 weeks living like a ghost. I installed high-definition security cameras outside my condo and inside my small commercial shop space. I moved all my digital files to an encrypted offline drive. I worked, I watched, and I waited. My sentence structure during those weeks became short, sharp, direct. I didn't have room for extra words. My life was down to a single binary sequence: survival or ruin. Julian was digging his grave, and I was just making sure the shovel was sharp enough. By June, the medical center contract had paid out its first major milestone invoice. My bank account was healthier than it had ever been. $64,000 in clear, liquid operating capital sitting in my corporate checkbook. I had just leased a new heavy-duty service van, its clean white sides emblazoned with the Apex Climate Solutions logo in sharp, professional blue lettering. I felt like a real business owner, a man with a foundation. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a local number, but when I answered, a woman's voice spoke with the clipped, robotic cadence of a corporate underwriting department. "Is this Mr. Leo Vance?" "Speaking, Mr. Vance, this is Clara from the Verification Division at Vanguard Capital. We are currently processing an application for a $75,000 merchant cash advance under Apex Climate Solutions. We have received the signed corporate resolution and the amended bank routing information. We are calling to complete the final telephonic verification with the primary account holder. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my voice stayed smooth as ice. I see. And what is the listed callback number on that application? She read off a number. It wasn't mine. It was Julian's personal cell phone. Clara, I said, pulling my van over to the side of the road. I need you to listen to me very carefully. I am the sole owner of Apex Climate Solutions. I did not submit that application. The documents you have are forged. Do not reject the application yet. I am going to email you a certified copy of my actual corporate filings and my state ID within 5 minutes. I want you to route the verification call to the number on the application, but I want you to record it, and I want you to send me the log. Sir, if this is fraudulent, we have to terminate the file. If you terminate it now, he'll just go to another lender tomorrow, I said, my voice dropping to that low, cold register I'd learned from my dad, but stripped of the anger. Help me catch him, and your legal team gets a clean confession on a silver platter. There was a long pause on the line. I could hear her typing. Send the documents, Mr. Vance. I will mark the file for simulated approval, pending a live 3-way verification. 2 hours later, it happened. My phone didn't ring, but my email chimed with an automated alert from the Vanguard compliance portal. It contained an audio file attachment. I clicked play, sitting in my clean, air-conditioned office space, surrounded by my trade certifications and my client folders. Yes, this is Leo Vance. Julian's voice came through my computer speakers. It was uncanny. He was using his lower register, trying to sound older, trying to mimic the specific, slightly slow Midwestern drawl I have when I'm tired. Yes, I authorized the immediate transfer of the $75,000 to the updated routing account ending in 4492. Thank you, Mr. Vance, the underwriter's voice replied. The funds will be disbursed to the corporate account within 24 business hours. The routing account ending in 4492 wasn't my business account. It was Julian's personal checking account at Chase Bank, the one my parents had co-signed for him when he was 18 so he could buy gas for his first car. He had done it. He had committed a federal financial crime, crossing state lines via wire transfer, using my identity to steal $75,000 from a high-interest commercial lender. I didn't have to wait long for the fallout. The very next evening, around 7 p.m., I heard a loud, aggressive pounding on the glass door of my commercial shop. I was in the back, sorting galvanized pipe fittings, when the noise echoed through the warehouse. I walked out to the front office. Standing on the pavement outside, illuminated by the bright orange glow of the streetlights, were 3 people. My mother, my dad, and Julian. Julian didn't look like an urban lifestyle entrepreneur anymore. His hair was greasy, his face was pale, and he was clutching a manila envelope against his chest like a shield. My dad looked frantic, his collar unbuttoned, his jacket crooked. My mother was crying openly, her hands pressed against her mouth. I walked to the door, unlocked the deadbolt, and opened it exactly 6 inches. I didn't invite them in. Leo, my dad gasped, his voice cracked with an emotion I'd never heard from him before, pure, unadulterated desperation. Leo, thank God you're here. We need you. We need you right now. You told me not to come back, Dad, I said, my voice completely devoid of inflection. You told me I was a disgrace to the name. Why are you at my shop? Leo, please, my mother sobbed, reaching through the 6-inch gap to grab at my sleeve. I stepped back, out of her reach. Your brother, Julian, made a terrible mistake. A horrible, stupid mistake. Some people are coming for him, Leo. The bank? They're saying it's fraud. Julian stepped forward, his eyes darting down the street as if a police cruiser were about to pull around the corner. Leo, look. I was just trying to get the money back to the original investor. I was going to pay it back before the first daily withdrawal hit your account. I swear to God I was. But Vanguard, they locked the funds. They said the account is frozen, under a criminal hold. They're saying I committed identity theft. You did commit identity theft, I said. Leo, you don't understand, Julian yelled, his voice rising into a pathetic, high-pitched whine. If they press charges, it's a felony. I'll go to prison, Leo. My life will be completely over. You have to call them. You have to tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you authorized it. Tell them we're partners in the LLC. My dad stepped in front of Julian, his eyes wide, bloodshot and begging. Son, please. I know we had words in November. I know I was harsh, but he's your brother, your own flesh and blood. You can't let them ruin his life over a money issue. We can fix this. You just call the lender, sign a retroactive authorization form, and we'll help you pay the daily premium. Your mother and I will take out a second mortgage on the house. We'll give you everything we have. Just save your brother. They stood there in the cool evening air, 3 people who had spent my entire life treating me like an annoying footnote in Julian's biography. They were waiting for the old Leo to appear. The Leo who would shrug his shoulders, swallow his pride, and take the hit just to keep the peace at the Thanksgiving table. They truly believed that the power dynamic hadn't changed. They thought their authority as my parents, and Julian's status as the golden boy, was a permanent law of nature. They didn't realize that the world they lived in had entirely dissolved the moment that deadbolt clicked 6 months ago. I looked at my dad. His chest was heaving. I looked at my mother, whose eyes were fixed on me with a terrifying synthetic affection that she had never once shown when I was actually succeeding. Then I looked at Julian. He was trembling, literal tears leaking down his cheeks, his expensive shoes scuffed from running to my door. No, I said. The word was small. It didn't have any weight behind it. It didn't need any. My dad blinked, his face twisting in confusion. What do you mean, no? Leo, did you hear what I just said? He's facing 5 to 10 years in a federal penitentiary. They've already filed the initial police report in Delaware. They're transferring it to our local precinct tomorrow morning. I know, I said. I'm the one who told them where to send it. The silence that followed that statement was heavier than any concrete block I'd ever lifted. My mother's jaw dropped. Julian staggered back half a step, his knuckles turning white as he gripped his manila envelope. You did what? Dad whispered. I called Vanguard Compliance 3 weeks ago, I said, leaning against the doorframe, crossing my arms. I gave them my corporate documents. I gave them my clean bank routing numbers. And I gave them the permission to record Julian when he called in pretending to be me. You trapped him? My mother shrieked, her voice cutting through the quiet neighborhood like a siren. You trapped your own brother? You monster! How could you do that to your family? He trapped himself, Mom, I said, my voice remaining perfectly conversational, as if I were explaining an HVAC schematic to an apprentice. He took my driver's license out of your house. He forged my signature on a $75,000 high-interest liability. If I hadn't caught it, Apex Climate Solutions would be bankrupt by August. My employees would be out of work. My condo would be foreclosed on. He didn't just try to borrow money, Dad. He tried to destroy my entire life to cover up his own incompetence. We would have helped you, Dad yelled, his fists clenching at his sides. We would have found a way. With what? The second mortgage you just offered to take out to save him? You never offered that mortgage when I was sleeping in my truck during my first year of business. You never offered to help when my tools were stolen out of my garage 2 years ago. Your retirement fund went to his clothes, his cars, and his vanity projects. You have nothing left to give me, Dad, and frankly, I don't want anything from you. Julian fell to his knees on the concrete pavement. It was the most pathetic thing I had ever witnessed. He reached out, trying to grab the hem of my work jeans. Leo, please, I'll give you the BMW. I'll sign the LLC over to you. I'll do whatever you want. Please don't let them arrest me. I can't survive in there, Leo. You know I can't. You should have thought about that before you practiced my voice on the phone, Julian, I said. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and unlocked the screen. I pulled up the audio file from Vanguard Compliance and turned the volume to maximum. Yes, this is Leo Vance. Julian's recorded voice echoed out into the parking lot, clear and unmistakable. Yes, I authorize the immediate transfer. I hit stop. That's federal wire fraud, Julian. The local police will be at your house by 9 a.m. tomorrow to execute the warrant. If I were you, I'd spend tonight finding a public defender who specializes in white-collar crime, because Vanguard isn't offering a settlement. Dad looked at me, and for the first time in my life, I saw actual fear in his eyes. Not anger, fear. He realized that the son he had spent 26 years dismissing was completely out of his control. He realized that no amount of guilt, no amount of shouting, and no amount of family obligation could penetrate the wall I had built around myself. "You're a cold bastard," Dad whispered, his voice shaking. "You're not my son." "You made sure of that 6 months ago," I said. I stepped back into the office. I pulled the heavy glass door shut. I turned the lock. Click. They stood there for another 10 minutes. My mother banged her fists against the glass until her hands were red. My dad held Julian up by his armpits as my brother literally wept into the concrete. Eventually, when they realized I wasn't even looking at them, that I had gone back to my desk to finish entering invoices into my accounting software, they turned around and walked back to their car, their figures shrinking into the dark city night. The next morning, Julian was arrested at his home. The local news ran a tiny 2-paragraph blurb in the business section about a local online merchant fraud scheme. His LLC dissolved 48 hours later. My parents did take out that second mortgage, not to save his business, but to pay for a high-priced defense attorney who eventually managed to negotiate a plea deal, 3 years at a low-security state facility and full restitution. I haven't spoken to my parents since that night. I blocked their numbers, their email addresses, and their social media profiles. My aunt told me recently that my dad tells everyone I moved to the West Coast and that they lost touch. They can't even admit to their friends that their golden child is sitting in a cell because the invisible son refused to be his scapegoat. People often talk about family like it's an absolute law, an unbreakable bond that requires you to sacrifice your own sanity, your own stability, and your own future just to keep a toxic structure standing. But the truth is, blood doesn't protect you from a predator. It just gives them closer access to your throat. Sometimes, the only way to win a rigged game is to let the board burn down with everyone else still sitting at the table. I'm curious to know, at what point does family loyalty become a suicide pact? If your own brother tried to ruin your life to save his own, would you have handed over the tape? Or would you have set yourself on fire to keep him warm? Let me know in the comments below.